Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us at From Classroom to Boardroom. This is a virtual event series addressing issues of race and equity in the workplace in Charlottesville, Virginia, and in communities across the country. Thank you to the United Way of Greater Charlottesville, to the University of Virginia, and to the Virginia Tourism Corporation for their support in bringing this program to life, as well as countless other partners and collaborators in our community and beyond. We've got two of them here today, actually more than that. Today, we're excited to present a live podcast recording featuring Matthew Harmon, who's the founder of Charlottesville-based wine producer A Taste of Harmony. He's also the host of Bad Guy, Good Wine podcast. He'll be in conversation with Antwon Brinson, Charlottesville community stalwart and CEO of Culinary Concepts. Matthew started A Taste of Harmony to challenge preconceived notions about wine and who should be drinking and making it. This session will touch on that, and I imagine a whole lot more. So, Antoine, Matt, I'm going to kick things over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Super excited to be doing this with Antoine. I know we're going to have a great conversation. Really looking forward to it. But like Ben was saying, my name is Matt Harmon. I started Harmony Wine. The idea was born a little bit before COVID, but during the pandemic really gave me the opportunity to finally jump all the way into it. Started doing a podcast and reaching out to people in the industry. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. And Antoine, if you want to introduce yourself and let people know who you are.
Hey, what's up? Antwon Brinson, owner, founder, Culinary Concepts AB. It's a social entrepreneurship here in Charlottesville. Everything we do, we focus on helping you where you are on your culinary journey, regardless if that's training programs, workshops, or cooking classes. Linked up with this dude through an event that we did, and I reached out to him after, and ever since then we've been rocking together. Super cool dude, obviously food and wine. Perfect marriage. And then, you know, I think he's the only brother in Virginia pumping out wine right now. So, you know, he's super humble about that, but definitely in the early stages of greatness here.
Yeah. So one of the questions I have for you is, you know, when you started getting into cooking, what was that like? And what were some of the experiences that you knew you were going to face going into it?
So, good question. So when I started out cooking, I would say I wasn't the guy. I don't have that story that's like, oh, I knew I was going to be a chef one day. I'm destined to be like a great chef one day. Like, it was one of those things that when I was younger, you know, I had an opportunity and someone seeing that I was kind of lost and I needed guidance, and they gave me an opportunity in cooking, and I did well with it. And on my journey, folks kept giving me opportunities to progress in it. And at some point, I started to believe in myself, and I thought I could do something with it. And, you know, I just pursued it. But really, it didn't come from anything other than just kind of someone saying, hey, you know what, we think that you can do this, you know, and that was it.
Yeah, nice, man. So getting into cooking, I know that there is plenty of ways, as you just said. Did you have an idea of what cooking might mean to you, or what cooking was going to be like?
What cooking might mean to me. So this is gonna be funny. All right, so when I grew up, my mom wasn't the best of cooks. So you know, so I kind of came from this environment where I didn't have confidence cooking in the kitchen. But I have ADD, right? So one thing about a person that has ADD is that you're really good at multitasking. And in the setting of the kitchen, you know, you have ticket machines going off, orders going down on the grill, the fryer, you know, you're plating up different things. It kind of catered to, you know, what at the time I thought was a disadvantage. And it became an asset for me. You know, the more that I stuck with it, the more I kind of sharpened those skills. And I just started to see, like, you know what, I'm really good at this. I could probably do something with it. And, you know, I tried many different other careers and different things, but cooking was the one thing that I kept coming back to.
Okay, nice. You know, this is Classroom to Boardroom. So, you know, there must have been some speed bumps or some kind of challenges that you had in the cooking industry.
Absolutely. You know, I would say, and I talked about this before in another segment, but, you know, when I was coming up, you know, I was working at it was a Sheridan, 4 Points by Sheridan. It was like the first property, like first hotel I ever worked in. And I remember, talking to one of the guys in the kitchen and later on a manager, and they're like, what do you want to do? And at this time, I'm starting to believe that I could do something with this. And I'm like, I want to do fine dining one day. And it looked me dead in my eyes. And now back in the days, I used to have long hair. I used to get perms. I had cornrows. It was a different state of time. It was a different time. And it looked me dead in my eyes and was like, you could never do that. You could never get into fine dining with cornrows, and it kind of hurt my feelings. I'm not even gonna lie, but for many years, that was the fuel that kind of drove me into like saying, I'm going to do this. And anytime I hit a roadblock, I'll remember that situation. And I pushed through it, from, going to, Culinary Institute of America to traveling the world to, doing a 3-year apprenticeship program under 3 certified master chefs. Like my drive for a very long time was, the naysayers.
Yeah. Speaking about that, you and I had a conversation probably a couple of weeks ago now about this topic and some of the awards that you have won in cooking competitions. Could you talk a little bit about that and what those meant to you?
Yeah, man. So I used to do these competitions, when I was an apprentice, and for many years, I would, you're working under certified master chefs. The bar is set so high, this back here is my little thing with all my medals in them. I don't even know they can see it on the thing, but no. So I never thought I was good enough. Like coming up the ranks, no matter what people told me, like I was chasing someone else's dream. It wasn't my dream. It took me many years to really understand that, like everything that I'm doing, it will never be the way that I want it to be because I really don't have a vision. So I think that coming up the ranks for me, it was really, I was walking in the shadows of a lot of people that, I look to as mentors. I look to as, what I consider great chefs. And, I strive for many years to, walk in those shoes. And it wasn't until, I got to, the position of, it was actually a sous chef. I opened a restaurant in West Virginia. And I would say that was the place where I really started to open my eyes to the possibilities of where I could go if I just focused on my dreams a little bit.
Okay, nice. How many years have you been working in cooking? I know that was a question I had that I wanted to ask you at the beginning, but you talking about your years of experience, I can already tell that there's been a lot. So how many years have you been working with it?
I've been cooking for 20 years. I would say 15 years professionally, and it's a big difference between just cooking and cooking professionally. But I would say 15 years ago, I started taking it. When I say professionally, I mean that's when I really the mindset from I'm a cook to I can be a chef one day really changed, and that's when I really started to drive towards a goal in cooking.
Working here now at your Culinary Concepts, what was some of the inspiration behind that? And yeah, just basically, what was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, and this is just being completely honest, coming up in the industry, my goal was fine dining. I spent my entire career in fine dining. And on that journey, there weren't many people that looked like me, and when I created Culinary Concepts, what I really wanted to do was build a bridge to connect people with opportunities and career pathways in cooking that allow them to, kind of get in the door that I had to fight so hard to get into, the whole reason that Culinary Concepts was born in Charlottesville was because we have over 500 restaurants here and we don't really have the workforce to support them. And, coming here as an executive chef, it was extremely hard for me to find talent. And when I really looked at, how, what opportunities there were for folks to get training in cooking, the landscape was pretty scarce. So when I designed this program, it was, how can I do something to give back to our industry and build bridges for people to connect to opportunities that they would never be able to get the opportunity to do unless someone opened that door.
Being that you are now in this industry and you've come up through the ranks and you've opened up Culinary Concepts, some of those battles and things and trials that you've gone through, if you could change a couple of things with a snap of a finger, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Now, are you talking just for Culinary Concepts?
Just for Culinary Concepts, and then the second part to that would just be the culinary field in general.
So that's a hard question for me to answer because I'm an optimist in life, just in general. So I don't really look at things like that was a bad thing. I look at things like that was an opportunity. It didn't go the way I wanted it to go, but I learned something from it, right? So looking at my experience and my journey to getting where I am today, I wouldn't change a thing. And because each of those situations helped shape who I am today.
Nice. And for the culinary world, you know, that industry, as you were saying, it can be kind of rough coming up, but somebody who is driven and wants to be in it, what advice would you give to them if they're coming up through the ranks?
If you're coming up through the ranks, my best advice is to find a mentor, a chef, or location, an establishment that gives you an opportunity for growth. Invest in that property, invest in a mentor that's going to invest in you. It's the long-term game, right? Where what happens is a lot of folks get into cooking or they get into an industry and they focus on the monetary value, the monetary goal, right? I want to make, this amount of money, right? And they forget that, like, if I actually, or a lot of people just don't know, if I actually stay at this property for 1 year, 2 year, not only will I be able to gain the experience I need to move up, but it's going to help set a foundation that is going to allow you to be even more successful further in your career. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be times where you're going to need to move and go different places. I've traveled everywhere, with my career because that was my goal. But I always stayed at a property and made sure that I was able to get the most from it, and as my mentor would say to me, squeeze all of the juice out of the lemon,
Yeah. When you think about the people who were your mentors, speaking of mentors, how many of those mentors actually looked like you, and how was that a benefit to you moving forward?
My very first mentor, his name was Chef McCoy, and it was in he was from Nevis, the island of Nevis, and I worked with him, and I was in St. John at the USVI. And it was a fine dining restaurant, and it was the first time that I had ever seen anyone looked like me in a position of power in the restaurants. And his style of cooking, he did a fusion of classical French and Caribbean French. He was, not only was he passionate, man, this dude, like, his skill set was, like, to this day, like, it's rare to see a Caribbean chef that's that knowledgeable. He passed away many years ago, but he was the first one that really planted the seed of possibility.
Yeah. Moving forward, you've worked at these restaurants, you've opened your own, you've done cooking competitions, you have great mentors. Speaking on all these experiences and going to different places, what was one of the best experiences that you've had in a cooking atmosphere?
Best experiences I've ever had. For me, when I look at experiences, is about my team. It's always been that way for me. And I would say one of the best experiences I've ever had with a team was my team in Hawaii. When I say that because it was a mutual relationship where they taught me a lot and I was able to teach them a lot. And I would say in that situation, we all grew together.
Yeah. Starting off my own wine business, I found that there were some naysayers and there were some doubters. Tuning those people out, how did that help you on your path? You talked about how it can be difficult because you didn't really have the confidence in the kitchen. What do you think that drive was? Was it trial and error, seeing yourself do things, or do you think it was something else?
No, man, I've always been the type of person that, like, and as a kid, my mom would say I'm hard-headed. But when somebody told me I couldn't do it, I would say, watch me. Yeah. And that was it, and I would focus on it, and a lot of times I would accomplish goals, not necessarily because I wanted to do it, but because somebody told me I couldn't do it. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that. And that's why I say, for many years, I was chasing someone else's dream because I didn't really set a goal for it Antoine, I set a goal because someone almost challenged me, inadvertently challenged me by telling me like, you can't do that. It never happened in my career. You could never get there, and it was just like, okay, watch me.
Yeah. You have a very, very dope spot. I mean, we talked about how we met, and I watched you cook a filet mignon in 3 minutes, which was ridiculous because before we started, I want everybody to know this man looked me in my eyes and said, "Yeah, I've never done this before, but we're gonna see how it goes." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, well."
Real talk.
The pressure is on. How many times has the pressure been on in the kitchen and you were like, "Whew, yeah, that was fun," and we got it done?
That's every time in the kitchen,
Yeah.
regardless if it's, a 12 top walking in, a banquet where banquet's messed up and you actually have 100 more people than you're supposed to have and you didn't have that food prep, or if it's, someone not showing up to work and you got to work 2 stations, and that's just from the perspective of a line guy. From a chef's perspective, it could be something as simple as the protein company forgetting to add your steaks to the order and therefore party. Right? I mean, the kitchen forces you to live in an agile state, and it forces you to constantly, be on your toes and think about, what can I do to make sure that I can mitigate, because there's always going to be something, right? That I can mitigate the possibility of something going wrong. In the kitchen, any chef will tell you, something always goes wrong. You just, if it's a process of elimination for you being successful, right?
Yeah. So what I kind of wanted to do was switch it up now and give you the opportunity to ask me some questions about harmony and anything that comes into your mind.
So here's my first question for you. Growing up, did your parents drink?
Actually, no. So I mean, well, let me clarify. I didn't know that my parents drank in the house until I turned 21, which is funny.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I saw, you see them go to like gatherings and stuff, and they would have a beer or a wine or something, but there was no real alcohol. Like, oh, I'm just going to sit back and have a beer. Like, it wasn't really that until, you turn 21, you bring a beer into the house. And I had 4 of these. Now there's 2, right? So yeah, no, that definitely was not something that I saw often.
That's awesome, man. So, when you had your first drink, you said it was a beer. When was it that you were first exposed to wines?
Okay. So I had, the second you start drinking, you turn 21, people always want to say, "Oh, you should try this, you try that." And, I went to a dinner party and there was wine available. And I mean, I think I just drank it just because it was supposed to go with the food, was my thought. And I was at 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So from your first experience drinking wine to you getting to the point that you're like, one day I want to have a wine label, like, what was it? What happened from your first drink to that time when you decided to launch a company? Like, what was that magical moment for you?
I had started going to wineries with friends and family. I was cooking a lot more. My dad is a great cook. My grandfather had his own restaurant. And so it was really just in me to just learn how to cook. Mm-hmm. And one day, my dad and I were talking. He was talking about how he would start pairing his foods with wine and how much fun they had. And at this point, I was already starting to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And going to the wineries, I started to notice that not everybody there looked like me. And I kind of wanted to change that. I wanted to jump into the wine and say, I think there's some room for growth here, and maybe I can be a part of that.
So was there a particular wine that you can remember that you were having at the moment you had this thought?
I believe it was a Cab Franc. I don't remember the year of vintage, but I know that it was a Virginia winery. It may have been Blenheim, or it may have been Glass House. But yeah.
So I'm gonna kind of switch gears from there. And so you said there's not many people that look like us in the industry, and I can agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Why?
So I had my own thoughts on that. It's definitely something that can seem unattainable and not as welcoming. You go to a winery and something as simple as the music that's being played, if you're already a little uncomfortable and nobody there looks like you, and then the music's not something that you've ever listened to,
Yeah.
you might feel a little standoffish. And
It
just doesn't create the good atmosphere, good energy that you want in there.
Yeah. With your wine label, what do you hope to do with it? Like, what is your ultimate goal as far as when it comes to barriers? What do you hope to accomplish with it?
I hope that, with the wine that I'm doing, I want to be able to create more opportunities for people like me to understand that wine doesn't have to be this one thing that you do at a table with people who are swirling it around their mouth and spitting it out. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think a lot of times people are thinking that wine is a certain thing that you have to do. So I want them to feel that they can have it whenever. If it's they're just hanging out with their boys and they're playing Xbox, let's open a bottle of wine. Or you're hanging out with a bunch of friends and cooking.
So, like, as a chef, a lot of what I've learned over the years is really to master, flavor profiles in pairing and being able to connect things. In the world of wine, do you feel like the flavors are relatable for people of color?
I do, actually. One of the things that actually got me into wine was the cooking I was doing. The soul cooking, the soul food cooking. I was noticing that even if I didn't understand the flavor profiles, it just tasted good together.
Very good.
And so it was just like this, quote, pun intended, this harmony of foods, this harmony of food and wine.
Harmony, folks.
Yeah, but this harmony of food and wine matching up well together just tastes together. And I'm not really sure why, and maybe I should do more research.
Yeah.
But it tastes good together.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And that's what I was hoping you would say, and that's the beautiful thing about wine, when you think about cultures, cuisines, wine really kind of transcends barriers because of the diversity that it brings to the table. You can pair something sweet, which you can find in any cuisine, and you can pair something sour or salty. And I think that that's what makes it unique. With the flavor profiles of your wines, what makes your wines unique?
So when I picked out these 5 wines, I have the Sparkling Gewürztraminer, the Cab Sauv, the Bourbon Barrel Red.
Sorry, real quick. This is the Cab that I'm crushing over here, y'all.
Peach, and then a Sangria, which is more of a sweet table red. With me picking those 5 wines, I almost was trying to introduce, I don't want to call them the novice, but kind of like the novice wine drinker who's just like, I just want something sweet. Yeah. And then kind of slowly introducing them into stuff that's a little bit more dry. And with the bourbon, it was my goal was really to key in on those people who are just strictly liquor drinkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really where
So in your journey of really kind of diving, and it sounds like you just dived into this wine world. Have you come across any other either Black winemakers, Black wine owners, nationally, internationally?
On Instagram, it's a little bit easier to connect with people who are Black winemakers and own a wine brand or a winery. But in person, I really haven't.
Well, we got COVID going on too.
we do have COVID. We do have COVID going on. But yeah, it's been difficult to find people that look like me in the wine industry. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. So how long has Harmon Wines been available?
So it's been available since December.
Since December, and like with COVID and everything going on, how has the market treated you as far as being able to get your product out there?
Honestly, it's been great. I started in December and had to reorder very, very shortly after. With any business, you're always expecting, or you hear and you're kind of expecting that it's going to be a slow start, but honestly, it just took off right out the gate.
That's awesome. Would you say that, obviously you're just getting started out, like what would you say your 3-year and 5-year goals would be for this amazing wine company?
I would hope that, because this wine is very welcoming, I want Harmony to not just be something that people are like, oh, these are just kind of some starter wines. I hope to build the profile of wines that I have and be mentioned when somebody walks into an ABC store
Yeah.
and says, "What are we drinking today? Is it Ciroc, Harmony, or Belvedere?" And that's just kind of always been, what I go after is the big goal.
That's dope. That's dope. Now, I know we were talking before we got started, and I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier. You said when you first got started, your wine came out of Texas. Can you talk a little bit about that process, and like what some of those barriers were that caused you to go that direction?
Yeah. So when I originally started to want to do wine, it was a couple of years before COVID, and I was going to source my grapes out of California. The permits and the licenses that are required.
Man, we talking about Napa, baby.
Yeah, Napa can keep their wine. But those barriers of the permits and licensings that happen in different states are very, very difficult. And then, before I was introduced to Virginia winemakers and contexts, I had no way of finding my way into that world because I didn't even know who to talk to, where to go to, or where to look. And when I did look, it looked like it was kind of closed off. Like you needed to know somebody kind of. And, I can appreciate that to a certain degree. But at the other hand, I want to be able to open that door for somebody else who's growing up in Charlottesville, possibly, or in another area where it seems like it could be closed off.
That's awesome. So, it's the future of Harmon Wines. Where would you like to see it coming out of, and why?
I would actually like to see it coming out of Virginia. I think that working out of the state of Virginia actually gives it more of a home feel touch to it, and I get to be a little bit more a part of the process, and that's something that I completely want. It brings a more of an authenticity look to it too, as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. My last question for you is, obviously I've cooked with the wine, I've tasted the wine. Big fan of not just the wine, but the person behind it. How do you foresee this wine crossing over into, especially in Charlottesville, in our community, into the middle-class Black community? How do you feel you're going to be able to get this wine into their hands, and how do you think it's going to be received? And I'm saying that kind of setting you up because Charlottesville and how Charlottesville is, and I'm wondering, do you see this being a barrier breaker, or do you see this being a thing that people will embrace? Like, what do you see? What just kind of?
I have been blessed to be able to have a bunch of support and love in a bunch of different places. So, the few naysayers here or there, they haven't affected me to that point. And I think that with what I'm doing, I know that people will see that I'm genuine and sincere and trying to open those barriers and reach everybody. So I think that it would be received well. And I also think that, with the product that I'm hoping to continue to bring and elevate as I go on, I think it's going to be something that it's almost going to be undeniable, hopefully.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that, man. I know for me, from my perspective, not being from this community, coming in and really kind of just being boots on the ground, trying to push this concept that nobody ever heard of before. The community really embraced, my energy. They really embraced, the vision that I had, and the support has been astronomical for me. And I was just curious if for you, obviously being from this community, if you felt the same way. So it's awesome to kind of hear you say the same thing and have the same belief system around it. So that's pretty much all I got for you, man. That's all the questions I got for you.
Yeah. I do have a couple more for you, actually. You have kind of taken, I would say, the cooking world by storm. I don't know if I told you the story, but I did a podcast with a comedian, and on the podcast he says, "Matt, I really would love to do something with you and Antoine and Chef AB." And this was, I don't know, I want to say it was almost a year ago now.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, yeah, definitely. Never heard anything else about it. Right? And then sitting here meeting you it hit me like a ton of bricks one day. And I was like, oh, this is him. How has it been? You know, you say you moved here and it's been really receptive. How has that love been, you know, trying to implement
a new concept? I think that, you know, many years in my career, you know, looking back, I had opportunities to like launch a company and do things, but the barrier for me was self-belief, just being completely honest. When I moved here to Charlottesville, not only was I put in a situation that helped me realize that I had a gift that could really solve a problem, but it also gave me an opportunity through introspect to really say, you know what, not only can I do this, I know I could crush it. You know, for me in this community, you know, when I launched my company and by nature, I'm an introvert. A lot of people don't know that about me, but if you put me in a room full of people without an agenda, I will play the wall all day. I would just play the wall. I won't talk to nobody. I'm chilling. But if you put me in a room with an agenda, you know, and that's the drive, right? I'll talk to every single person in that room. You know, I'll give every single person in that room my business card. Well, back in the days I would, and I would follow up with meetings. That's how aggressive I was in the beginning. So for me, like, it wasn't a matter of, you know, if this was going to be successful. It was how long is it going to take me to get there? You know, like I was willing to put the work in, you know, like I never once did I have a doubt. So to kind of answer your question, you know, like the power of self-belief really kind of helped me on my journey. And that's what has allowed sustainability. That's what has allowed me to build relationships. That has allowed me to break down barriers. It was really mental.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we're both in a unique state because being entrepreneurs and then also working in a food industry, those are two very, I'm trying to think of a good word to say, but those are two very strong, and they take very strong-minded people to do either one.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just a chef in the kitchen, you still got to be strong-minded and come up with all kinds of ideas. But to add on the business side, how has balancing that been?
What balance? Anybody that knows me knows that's my struggle. You know, like I have things that I call them safeguards that I put in place to protect myself, because when you're passionate about something and you know that what you're doing is your purpose, like you can do it all day, you know. And for me, I had to learn how to pump the brakes, because as a chef, you know, I would spend easy 18 hours days in the kitchen, 6-7 days a week, you know, like, and I wouldn't think about it, you know. And when I launched my company, the three things that I said I wanted to invest in that I knew were going to allow me to be successful: 1, myself; 2, my family; and 3, my business. And a lot of the time people put business first. And I knew that my entire career, I had always put business first, but I never invested in me, and I never invested in my family. And I put me first because I say, without me being able to do it for me, I can't do it for anybody else. So once I was able to understand those 3 things that I needed, the rest was just working on it. And I struggle with it. For a long time, and I still do it. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to maximize my time, right? Because I want to make sure that I can get everything done in a day. And at the end of the day, you still don't get everything done, right? Yeah. No matter how much energy you put into it. But, you know, I would say, kind of going back to it, you know, being able to like set little things that's going to, like, these little safeguards for yourself allows you to really not just focus on your business and grow your business, but it allows you some sense of normalcy. I would never say balance, because it's never balanced. You're either too much here, too much here, too much there, right? But it's never balanced.
Yeah. I've noticed that. I am one of those people who is strong entrepreneur. I like to push it on everybody. Yeah. And so I think that I had to learn that, you know, there is a balance. You know, I want to wake up at 4 and send an email at 4:30, and I'm like, oh wait, if I send this, I'm gonna look crazy. Pull back and show.
No, you won't. No, you won't. Ain't nobody gonna flinch. They're gonna get used to it. Anybody that knows me, they know.
that I had to. You're right. There is no balance, because it's all right. I just need to pull back on this a little bit and and make sure that I'm trying to allocate times to everything in the proper space. But I do have one other question for you. Moving forward, without giving too many details if you don't want to, what are some of the exciting things that you have upcoming, if you can share, and what is some things that you would like to do in the future?
It's a beautiful question. Culinary Concepts was born out of a need in the industry, in over the last 3.5, actually 4 years now. It's transitioned from being a training program to doing workshops to consulting. We've done a festival in the past, and as of last year, we have a strong virtual platform where we do cooking classes. And, where I see this going is, like, my goal when I launched the company was never Charlottesville. Charlottesville was home. You got to take care of home if you're going to take care of somewhere else. So, the goal is national and international. And I would say by the end of this year, I'm working on some partnerships that's going to allow us to branch off to do some work in 6 other states. And hopefully by next year, we'll be able to have a Culinary Concepts in at least 12 different states.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I know we're probably a little bit ahead. I know we got a couple of minutes left.
I think they had questions for us. I don't know if that's there's some stuff in the chat. Hold on, let's see. It says
That's my mother.
Oh, that's your mother. Is it dry or does it have residual sugar?
This one is a dry one. This is the cab that we're drinking.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you my chef ballot on it. I like it because it's it's a simple wine. It's not too much complexity. When you drink a lot of like old world French wines, as they say, the terroir, the soil, it gives the wines a lot of complexities, which and for some people it's too much because they're not used to drinking a lot of wines. I like the simplicity of this wine. It's easy to pair. You can put it with a steak. I think I did this with the steak au poivre, right? It goes perfect with green peppercorns, red peppercorns, and black peppercorns, especially green peppercorns. I think that it would go with lamb. This would definitely go with red meats. It's just a solid wine that it's not trying to be the star. It's trying to be the fly person on your shoulder.
Yeah. It's funny. It's speaking back to that steak that you made. I remember getting a bunch of questions. Was that steak as good as it looked? Because I was the only one on the call who got to try it. And I was like, it was actually better. And I don't feel bad about bragging about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. What's some of the other questions?
Insta handles. So where can people find you at?
Culinary Concepts AB. Instagram, it's Culinary Concepts _AB. But you can find on all social medias, just type that in or visit the website, culinaryconceptsab.com.
Okay, awesome. For me, it is Harmony_wine on Instagram. The podcast Bad Guy Good Wine is on all streaming platforms, and atasteofharmony.com is where you can find the wine. Yeah.
Awesome.
Speaking of music, what music could be played while drinking?
What?
Oh, okay. It's funny. When I met, that was Reggie. So when I met Reggie, we talked about the music that we like to play. Let's see. For this one, I think personally, I'd probably listen to some Drake with this one.
Drake.
Yeah, that's just something. It can't be too bumpy, but I think something smooth, like you were saying, the fly guy who's just trying to be on your shoulder. I think that works well with this one.
I would say for me, what would I drink? Because I listen to a lot of music.
Or Anita Baker.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like a Miles Davis,
Mm.
a John Coltrane, something chill, or I love my Spanish music too when I'm cooking. So, I would definitely put on some flamenco with this, my man Pablo. It's just a chill wine, it fits a chill playlist.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It really does. Is there anything else in there? I don't know if we missed any questions.
I think that's all the questions.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Speaking of music, okay, that was the one you just answered. I think that's all the questions that we
That's
have.
all the questions.
Yeah. So I don't know what happens next.
I'm gonna wrap you guys. No, I appreciate the Drake shout out. I was listening to Scorpion earlier today, Matt. So
My man.
a little bit of that. Thanks to you both for sharing your stories and your perspectives with us here today. I know that this will be available at a later date, both on the podcast and on YouTube. So please, folks who are here, share with your friends and colleagues and neighbors and families. Looking forward to spreading the word about these two guys and their entrepreneurial ventures and so much more. So thanks to you both, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.